Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jeff Allen. I'm a program director at World Monuments Fund. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, WMF is the leading independent organization devoted to safeguarding the world's most treasured places to enrich people's lives and build mutual understanding across cultures and communities. We're based in New York, but we have staff and offices all around the world. I'm currently joining you from Cairo, Egypt in the evening, where I live and where we have several ongoing projects. It is a pleasure to see so many people here today and for the event of Heritage from Home. Heritage from Home is a series of behind-the-scenes tours of some of World Monuments Fund's most iconic sites around the globe. And it is my pleasure today to take you to Babylon in Iraq, one of the world's truly legendary sites, to explore the history and our ongoing work to preserve the iconic Ishtar Gate. Joining us today on this journey are two speakers who I personally know: Helen Gries, an archaeologist specialized in Mesopotamian archaeology and a curator at the Near East Museum in Berlin. For those of you who are German speakers, I have decided to forego trying to pronounce the proper word, not to embarrass you and myself. And second, Ammar and al-Taee, an archaeologist with the Iraq State Board of Antiquities and Heritage and WMF's project archaeologist at Babylon. Thank you both for being here with us today and sharing your insight into the site's excavation and rehabilitation process that's ongoing now. Before we screen today's tour of Ishtar Gate and answer some of your questions about the site, I want to give you some background on WMF's involvement at Babylon, and then hand it over to Helen for an overview of the Ishtar Gate's history and early excavations that led to its modern rediscovery. A quick note before I begin. Since we all will have a Q&A session at the end of this event, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat or Q&A box at any time. And we'll try to get to as many as possible with the time provided before the event ends. Now, about WMF at Babylon and Ishtar Gate. World Monuments Fund has been working with Iraq's State Board of Antiquities and Heritage since 2009 on the Future of Babylon project. It's been nearly 14 years, and some in the SBH have known me from the beginning. They have seen me, as may I add, I have seen them too, steadily fall victim to the degradation of time under Iraq's sweltering sun. We have aged with patina, like the time-worn bricks of Ishtar Gate itself. I should tell you, I'm not the best one to speak, but it's not easy being an Iraqi. As any of them will tell you, they are people who know of life's challenges. So any project in Iraq will likely share a bit of their charisma-building journey, not to say the frustrations that go with it. That is to say, making something happen like the Future Babylon project is a unique endeavor, and as a result, has been essential for building the character, not just myself, but of WMF as an organization. Our work began with a group of donors who generously supported our early results. But today, I'm happy to say that only one has stood the test of time. For nearly 14 years, the US Embassy in Baghdad has supported the SBH-WMF collaboration at Babylon. Currently, they are funding two projects: the Nimlok Temple Earth and Architecture Conservation Program, which could be the subject of a future Heritage from Home event, and the Ishtar Gate Conservation and Presentation Project, the subject of our event today. With the SBH, WMF mapped out 3 collaboration goals in the early stages of our engagement. Then, as donors provided funding, they became reality. The first step was an important one, and actually began through an initiation of the Iraqi Antiquities Board at the time. It was to develop the Babylon Site Management Plan, also known in the business as the BSMP. This was a foundation document utilized by the SBH for the UNESCO World Heritage Site listing. We paralleled this process of about 5 years as an investment in the SBH's capacity to plan and manage the site. As a supplement to the BSMP, I'll show you a few photos. WMF worked with the SBH on several stabilization projects. There's a picture here of Nimmak Temple. There's an obvious problem, I'm sure you can see. These efforts meant putting the document into action by cleaning the site, removing inappropriate modern structures, and using emergency interventions to keep archaeology from collapsing, such as the Lion of Babylon, one of our earlier projects. So in this next image, you will see the Lion of Babylon, which, like Ishtar Gate, is a bit of an iconic emblem of cultural identity for most Iraqis. I wish we could have done more, but we had to push on. The next step was, during the BSMP's early planning process, the SBH listed 5 priority sites for general maintenance and conservation actions. So this image that you see next, with the financial support of the US Embassy in Baghdad, WMF currently takes action at Nimmak Temple and Ishtar Gate, which you'll see in the next photo. So there's Ishtar Nimmak Temple you see here, and then right next door is Ishtar Gate. Now, I'm kind of sneak peeking a photo of Ishtar Gate before it was excavated, and I know that Helen will show you something more about this later, but I think it's one of the best photos ever. If you look at this, you will see a site buried in the ground. And in 1904, Ishtar Gate was excavated. I'll leave the rest for Helen to talk about, but it's a lovely photo. And here it is today. Ishtar Gate is a national icon. It holds a great spell over Iraqis, and you can see the images of it everywhere. From the entrance at the Iraqi embassy to the Arab League, right near me down the street, where they constructed a miniature Ishtar Gate to bring diplomats into the compound, to wall hangings at people's houses. And I'm not sure if the focus will go well, the actual 25,000 dinar note of the Iraqi government, which features images of Hammurabi, images of Ishtar Gate and the Lion of Babylon. Working with something like this is a real honor, but it's also a challenge. And I just want to quickly go over for you a few of the objectives that we're going through right now at Ishtar Gate. Number 1, we're here to improve the water management to reduce moisture and humidity within the historic building materials. So the picture you see here is my friend Hyder, who's working on some of the bricks that have been damaged by rising water damp and poor drainage. Second, design and appropriately fit the new architecture and engineering solutions into a historic site that highlights international preservation principles. So the next photo I want to show you is what it looked like before we started. There's Ishtar Gate, about 7 meters down in a hole, surrounded by a set of retaining walls that hold back archaeological material. So if you look at this photo, the retaining walls that you see in the very foreground there were built in the 1950s, and they were failing. So the next photo is the dream. And this is what we're doing today. And my friend Ammar will give you a bit of a talk about that once we get to him after our video. The third objective is to elevate the SBH's conservation standards and practices related to historic building materials, another subject that Ammar will talk about. And fourth, better present and interpret the monument for visitors. So this is what we're hoping to do. And now I want to show you where we're at with it. And we're quite far along. So the next image is just 2 days ago. And you can see the retaining walls are becoming a reality. So I want to show you a brief video that Ammar put together with his drone. Ammar has three daughters, and he has 1 drone. So he's a busy man around the house. So this is one of Ammar's creations. Shows you the work site that we have with our crew. If I had more time, I'd introduce you to a whole list of people. Maybe if you don't have questions and answers, I'll give you everybody's name with a special thanks at the end. But we want to make sure you have time for a Q&A if you need. So we implement these objectives, 4 objectives. with an overarching emphasis on hands-on complementary skills enhancement for SPH employees, those who are keen to advance their capabilities. And we also want to train our local team. We have a crew of people that work full-time at the site in Iraq. So we want to create opportunities for them to see and refine transferable vocational skills to the Iraqi commercial building and trades market. Because the reality is not everything for their future is going to be in archaeology. Iraq is a growing country and it needs quality, trained and qualified people in the construction sector. So it makes sense to think about that when you're doing a project like this. This leads me to someone we hope to see much more at Babylon in the future, archaeologist Helen Gries. It's been years since we first started talks about how to get her to Babylon. And this summer it finally happened, Helen. You made it. You could have picked a better time of year than June because, you know, it's a bit hot. It's for those of us living abroad, it's about 50 degrees. People back in North America, it's about 120 some degrees on a daily basis during the summer. As most of you may know, archaeology is not WMF's role. However, as we begin to encounter territories with little previous scientific information about the site, it is crucial to expand our collaboration with others holding not just expertise, but also a longer history than us at the site. So together with our SPH partners, we hope to look for opportunities to come with Helen and maybe her museum in the future. They were at the site many years ago, and she's about to tell you. So welcome to you, Helen, and congratulations on your recent Ishtar Gate guidebook for the Near East Museum at the Pergamon. I hope this plug gives you a few more sales. So take it away.
Thank you, Jeff, for this very kind introduction. I also want to thank Ammar for his help and his hospitality when I was in Babylon a few months ago. I'm very happy to give you a short introduction into the history of the Ishtar Gate. Babylon has never really been forgotten. Primarily, the local population was responsible for preserving Babylon's memory and maintaining knowledge of the site's exact location. To this day, the Babylonian name of the city, Bab-Ili, Gate of the God, lives on in the Arabic name Babel. Babylon also plays an important role in the Christian Jewish thought and is part of the Islamic tradition. In addition to the biblical tradition, Greek and Roman authors were primarily responsible for maintaining knowledge of the ancient city in Europe. As you can see on the next slide, archaeological research in Babylon began only in the 19th century with the British traveler Claudius James Rich. He made the first detailed map of the ruins in 1811 and carried out small excavations, of which he later published the results. In subsequent years, more British travelers were drawn to Babylon. In 1850, Austin Henry Layard excavated there and sent some of his finds, for example, glazed brick fragments from the Ishtar Gate, to the British Museum. After only a short time, however, Layard, the pioneer of archaeology in Mesopotamia, ended the excavation in disappointment, as no large-scale stone monuments were found in Babylon. French researchers were no less interested in Babylon. In 1851, they decided to launch a Mesopotamian exhibition with the aim of exploring Babylon. This enterprise faced great problems from the beginning. In the excavation in Babylon in 1852-53 did not produce the desired results. Next slide, please. The systematic exploration of Babylon is inseparably linked to the person of Robert Koldewey, the architect and archaeologist responsible for selecting Babylon as an excavation site. He directed the excavation on site from 1899 to 1970 and subsequently published the results. Koldewey had already taken part in the first German expedition to Mesopotamia in 1886, and then 10 years later in the second German expedition. Alongside the Orientalist Edward Sachau, Koldewey led the so-called pre-exhibition, which was sent out to look for a suitable site for the first major German excavation project in Mesopotamia. During the expedition, Koldewey also visited Babylon. There he found 3 glazed brick fragments on the ground, which you can see on the next slide. He brought them back to Germany, where he used them to convince the board to launch excavations in Babylon. Even though at the time it was still completely unclear to which building the glazed brick fragments belonged and what exactly they depict, Koldewey was already maintaining the possibility of being able to reassemble the brick fragments, and that these assembled bricks could then also be displayed in a museum. During his excavation in Babylon, Koldewey found thousands of glazed brick fragments, and even today archaeologists continue to discover such fragments in the rubble during work in Babylon, of which you can see some examples on the next slide. However, no part of the Ishtar Gate, as it has been reconstructed in Berlin, was still standing during the excavation. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II is considered the builder of the Ishtar Gate. The gate displays the images of 2 heavenly creatures, which you can see on the next slide. The snake dragon, symbolizing the city god of Babylon, Marduk, and the bull, the weather god Adad. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar II had constructed a total of 3 consecutive gates erected directly on top of each other. But only the 2 older phases of the Ishtar Gate were still partly preserved, as you can see on the next slide. The earliest gate was revealed to consist of bricks with unglazed relief depictions, as you have seen before. The successor gate had glazed but flat bricks. It's only for the most recent structure that Nebuchadnezzar II ordered the use of both relief decorated and glazed bricks. The photo on the next slide shows the ruin of the Ishtar Gate as it appeared during the excavation. The structure from the gate's earliest phase were partly preserved and can still be seen at the site today. You will see that in more detail soon. The reconstructed gate at the museum in Berlin thus represents the most recent phase and consists of small brick fragments only. Koldewey's assistant at Babylon, Walter André, went through the great effort of reassembling the brick fragments into the original animals that had once adorned the facade of the Ishtar Gate, as well as the processional street and the throne room, as you can see on his drafts on the next slide. Within the first year of the excavation, he succeeded in making a draft reconstruction of the line of the processional street. Shortly after, André used the unglazed relief representation from the earlier structures as templates for the reconstruction of the glazed dragons and bulls of the gate's latest version, whose reconstruction you will see on the next slide. Today, doubts still remain about the Ishtar Gate's overall appearance. Considerable uncertainties concern its height, the arrangement of the animals, and the ornamental bands. I would like to end my brief overview of the history of the Ishtar Gate with one of my favorite photos of the gate, which you can see on my last slide. The Iraqi photographer Latif Al-Ani, who sadly passed away last year, captured an English company filming about tourism in Iraq in 1961. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Helen. Much appreciated. I look forward to our future working together at Ishtar Gate. It's a hint for all of those out there. We hope to see you back repeatedly as we move through other phases of the work. And now, to break up the day before the big finale of Ammar al-Taee, who is perhaps Iraq's best beekeeper, besides being an archaeologist, I'm going to ask someone to put on a little video. This video is kind of a cheesy little walkthrough of the site with Haider Bassem, my coworker, and I at Babylon. Remember, I'm kind of approaching this as a tourist. So I can kind of say, I ain't no specialist at Babylon, but I do love it. So I want to cue up a kind of interesting, funny little video we put together. And it's just a walk from the entrance to Ishtar Gate and the kind of things you see along the way. So I hope you enjoy the film. It's about 15 minutes. Thank you. And now it's time to set off on your virtual journey here to the ancient city of Babylon in modern-day Iraq. Hello, my name is Jeff Allen. I'm a program director at World Monuments Fund, and I'm here at Babylon in Iraq. And I am standing right now at something we nickname and call the Blue Gate. It is not Ishtar Gate, as some people often talk about, that's been poorly maintained. In fact, it is a replica of Ishtar Gate built in the 1950s. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is Babylon important? Well, Babylon's important for many reasons. And I'm about to introduce you to one of those reasons. This is my co-worker, Haider Bassem.
My name is Haider Bassem. I'm from Babylon, from Al-Taee.
So Haider is part of the Future of Babylon. This is called the Future of Babylon project. And why is Haider part of the Future of Babylon? Is that Babylon, as we know, is important for many reasons historically. And it has to do with laws, has to do with astronomy, mathematics, the organization of societies. And it's an amazing place for all that we know about how civilizations develop. Now, on another way, why it's really kind of super important today is for its economics and tourism, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about the future of Babylon, we're really talking about the future of Iraqi people.
Yeah, of Iraqi people.
And especially the local people that live in and around this archaeological site.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that's important to understand about the Future of Babylon project is that World Monuments Fund needs to look at Babylon after we leave the site. So one of the things we do is we employ and we train people. Now, Haider here is a conservation technician on the project at Ishtar Gate, and he's been involved in the masonry. So, Haider, if it's okay with you, you and I are going to go through here, and we're going to take our people who are on the tour with us today to go visit Ishtar Gate. You ready?
Yes, okay.
Yalla bina. So now we've moved past the Blue Gate. As I mentioned, that is a replica of the original Ishtar Gate. And we're now in the courtyard of the Nebuchadnezzar Museum. And it's here that in the 1950s, tourism was first developed at Babylon with the use of the museum. There's an old map you see over here. Come on over here, Haider, with me. And the map talks about all the famous and historic places in Iraq. Now from here, we're going to go straight up ahead to the processional way, which was the original historic passage for ceremonies that led to Ishtar Gate. We've walked up on top of the processional way, right?
Yes.
And the processional way was the, I guess, kind of main street of historic Babylon. Remember, Babylon at one point was the world's largest city. So here you are in the main street of the big town of ancient Mesopotamia. And the street saw many famous figures go through here. Biblical figures such as Daniel and Alexander the Great. And we're following their footsteps to, up ahead, Ishtar Gate. Yalla bina?
يلا بينا.
We took a little rest area stop along the processional way, and we're presently at
South Palace.
the South Palace. This is built by Nebuchadnezzar II, and it's a very grand structure, and as you can see, it's been reconstructed. So during the 1980s, there was a big program to rehabilitate Babylon, to revive the city as part of a kind of national pride agenda. And one of those tasks was to completely reconstruct Nebuchadnezzar II's palace. At one point, Saddam Hussein, former ruler of Iraq, gets this idea that to place himself historically in importance, that he is going to create a kind of legend that he is the son of Nebuchadnezzar II. And as part of that story was to build his own palace here, which is up above on a hill behind here. And he builds that palace overlooking Nebuchadnezzar's palace because he was the son of Nebuchadnezzar II. So taking a cue from the Mesopotamian kings, Saddam used the bricks of Nebuchadnezzar II's palace reconstruction to announce that he, as the son of Nebuchadnezzar, was coming back to rebuild Babylon. And as you can see, it is here. Now, part of our challenges are there are a lot of reconstructions at Babylon that were done in irreversible ways that are very complicated for conservation and preservation purposes. So we're going to continue on up processional way to the Ishtar Gate. Welcome to the real Ishtar Gate. Now, previously we were standing in front of that big blue thing, and that is actually, as I mentioned, a replica built in the 1950s. Ishtar Gate is actually a series of gates. The ancient Babylonians would build a gate. Later on, when the water table is moving up, they build another gate on top of it, on top of it, on top of it, on top of it. And so really it's a series of gates. And they're maintaining, for the most part, the same kind of fortification footprint as they raise the gate. So when you look behind me, there's an animal relief right here. This is a Mushushu, which is a mythical figure connected to the gods. And actually, there are Mushushus going all the way down in the ground below us. Multiple numbers, because as the gate is renovated, it is added, built up. Now, this creates a bit of a complication when it comes to conservation because we have a lot of moisture in the ground below me. And one of the major projects we've had here is to actually fix the masonry. Now, Haider here, as a conservation technician, is someone who's been leading with a group of people from the local villages that were trained by WMF to restore and conserve the masonry. So Haider, will you say a couple sentences about what you were doing with this Mushushu and other animal reliefs?
Okay. First, we clean the joint, and then we make mortar. We use the mixture to fill the joint.
At the same time, with you're using a mud mortar, water inside the wall can get out, all right? So we're creating a situation where the joints are able to allow water to transmit out as well as to prevent it from going into the masonry core of Ishtar Gate.
And the mixture we can remove is very easy. not seem like cement.
That's a good point. So a lot of the work that was done in the 1980s was very heavy-handed here at Babylon. They used a lot of cement, basically. And cement by itself is not a bad thing, but if it's used in conjunction and adjacent with historic building materials that predate the modern age, it is a problem. So one of the projects has been to try to remove the concrete and cement where possible, because often it's not possible, and to replace it with more sympathetic building materials. Now, Hydro, let's talk briefly about this problem we have here. So we have historic bricks, and then, in the 1950s to 1980s, they replaced the bottom.
87,
Yeah.
This is bricks. This is bricks. It save the moisture inside.
They're modern fired construction bricks. Here we have a case where modern construction bricks that are fired in a different way and handled and made a different way than these historic bricks, modern bricks, are side by side, and we have cement. Problem. So the next task we have for conservation is they're going to have to remove this, a kind of piece of surgery, so to speak, take away these modern bricks and rebuild the lower courses of the walls with new bricks and old bricks that have the same consistency and components of the historic masonry, right?
Yeah, historic masonry.
All right. Now, as a kind of grand finale of our tour today, we're actually going to come back in the evening and you're going to see some of our work we're doing at Ishtar Gate for better presentation of the site for visitors, which is a kind of, I think, fairly spectacular thing to see. So let's move towards Ishtar Gate, and by the time you see me next, you'll see me in the nighttime. Okay? Come along.
Future of Babylon project is created in 2008. In this project, World Monuments Fund collaborated with Iraqi State Board of Antiquities and Heritage to document Babylon, complete condition surveys, and develop conservation plans. As a result, Babylon was officially inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage list on July 5th, 2019. World Monuments Fund is also implementing directly some priorities of the conservation and the site management plan, and the first one was Ishtar Gate. The project started in 2016 in conservation of historical monument and now working on renovation of the north retaining walls.
So an important thing to remember is that Iraq is a hot country in the summer. And if you're going to do this kind of work down in the hole 7 meters down below, you might as well do it in the evening. So the work crew at Ishtar Gate starts at 5 p.m. and they work until 1 a.m. I'm standing next to the gabion walls, which are a replacement for the old concrete walls that were here. Concrete walls were impermeable, water was trapped behind them, moisture built up. This time we're using stone. We have two kinds of stone here. One is a river stone that we use for the structural elements of these gabion boxes behind me. Second, we use a decorative marble, a kind of slightly cream-colored marble, which has a 20-centimeter section to give it more of a decorative facing. This stone will wash off and clean better than this stone. And we want to lower the levels of biogrowth and other, say, tintings of the stone. And we want to use a smoother kind of stone that'll be more presentable of what we want to show. Now, because the old ones were straight, the curvature gives it more strength to hold back all the soil behind us. Remember I said 7 meters? We're trying to hold it back. So this is a new construction, and it's an important part of the project work World Monuments Fund is doing at the Future Babylon project. I want to thank everyone who spent a few minutes today or tonight, as it is, here at Babylon. to thank you for coming to the Ishtar Gate project and listening to us talk about what we're doing here with World Monuments Fund in partnership with the Iraq State Board of Antiquities and Heritage through funding provided by the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. So from all of us to you, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm back. Ammar, are you there? Did you fall asleep, Ammar al-Taee? Ammar, you're one of my favorite people on earth. You know that, don't you? Ammar is a genius in the making. That's what I could say, Ammar. You have a great future. If we can just give you a few opportunities and make things hum, it's going to be a lovely future for you. I just want to say one thing on that video, okay? First of all, I wasn't the editor of that. So I want to apologize, Ammar, to you and Saif and Amir and a few others who didn't get in the video. I am not responsible. One thing I do want to say for the professionals out there, I am talking about a mashushu, but unfortunately somebody showed a bull, a dad. They didn't show a mashushu. So anyway, it's a cool looking thing. So I think you're going to do something about that, right, Ammar? Remember, Ammar is an archaeologist for the Iraq State Board of Antiquities and Heritage. He is also a beekeeper. He is a father of 3 lovely daughters, means he's married to his lovely wife. And he also has another child called the drone, the DJI drone, which goes with him everywhere in the trunk of his car. And also, he's the guy out there every day with Saif Bayeti and El Ratel Construction. He's giving us information about what's going on the site. So Ammar, now is your great opportunity to move your career one step further forward towards glory and the future. Please tell us about what we're doing at Ishtar Gate.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff, and thanks to Helen. So now we will go to Babylon to see Ishtar Gate, that we have it, and to see the ongoing work at this gate. So the first slide, this is the Ishtar Gate, the shape of Ishtar Gate that we have it now in Babylon. Next slide, please. So removing the concrete floor of Ishtar Gate. So in 1979, Iraqi government started a huge project. They called it Revival of Babylon. And they built the floor of this gate from the concrete. But we have a problem. The level of underground water in Babylon very high. So the moisture cannot get out or come out from the concrete, so it is started to come out from the original walls of Ishtar Gate, and this is make a big damage inside the wall, especially the lower part. So what we did, we removed most of the concrete that we have it in the floor of the gate to, so to speak, to allow to the gate to take a breath. And in this way, we make the rate of the moisture less in this gate. Next slide, please. Here we can see we are rebuilding the damaged bricks due to moisture and salt in the lower parts of Ishtar Gate. Because of the moisture, most of the part, the lower parts in Ishtar Gate damaged because the moisture, and also it is with the salt. So the moisture mixed with the salt, and this mixture is make a big damage inside these walls. The third slide, please, or the fourth. So here we can see repointing and grouting all the joints between each bricks in the gate. So the natural factor caused it pull out the material from the joints of the bricks. So we analyzed this original material that the Babylonian use it, and we did a material like the original one to use it, or to routing all the joints between each bricks inside this gate. And this material, as Mr. Jeff said, it will allow to the moisture to come out from the walls. It not keep it inside the walls like the cement material. Next slide, please. And here you can see replacing damaged or missing bricks by infilling with historic bricks found from old excavation of the gate. So we have some bricks that we have it from the old excavation. So we are using it to put it inside the empty places inside the gate. As well as the lower part, we did a research or investigation in all the villages that are around the archaeology site. And in the end, we found a village that in Borsibba city, it is the next city after Babylon. So they, until now, they have, they can use the bricks, or they made the bricks in the same size and the color of original bricks. And even they used the tradition kilns to producing this bricks. So they provide us with that bricks, and it is very important to make the conservation for this lower part in Ishtar Gate. Next slide, please. So here it is the north entrance of Ishtar Gate. So we are replacing filling concrete retaining walls at the northern entrance to Ishtar Gate. So the Iraqi government also in 1959, they make this concrete walls in the north entrance of this gate. But these walls don't, it's keep the moisture also and the salt inside the walls, and then it's transfer it to inside the front or the facade of the Ishtar Gate, and also this make or did a big damage inside the wall. So we removed it and we used this gabions. The new design depends on building the entrance and retaining walls from the gabions. The main purpose of this design to not allow to the moisture to stay inside the retaining walls and transfer it to the gate. And here you can see the last slide. The structural gabions are filled with river stone and then faced with decorative marble. So we choose this kind of stones because it is the porosity of it is very tiny and don't keep the moisture inside it, as well as there is a spaces between each stone. So the moisture cannot stay for a long time in these walls. So we will save these original walls in Ishtar Gate for the new generation by using these walls from the gabions.
Thank you, Ammar. Thank you very much. I'm jumping back to those 4 kind of objectives we had, Ammar, and I just want you to confirm this. One of the biggest problems we've had, or the biggest problem, is water management. A lot of people think that Iraq is a desert. It's a hot place in the summer, but in the winter, as you know, if you can speak just a moment about the weather patterns at Babylon and about the rain and climate change effects on the monument and its environment. If you could say something about what it's like to be at Babylon during the year.
Yeah, so as you said, most of the people, they think Iraq on Babylon is like a desert, but and the truth or on the reality, we have the river, the Euphrates River, in the middle of the city of Babylon. So because of the river, the level of underground water is very high. and this make a damage, causes a damage inside not just the Ishtar Gate, all the Babylon archaeology site, and we cannot honestly go so deep inside Babylon or make excavation because of this issue. So this is the situation now in Babylon. We face it every year, every day, the underground water. So this is the problem here in Babylon.
Thank you, Ammar. We've got some questions and answers for everybody. Helen, you're still out there. You haven't fallen asleep, have you? You're wide awake there? We'll see if we dig you out a question. Ammar, I think I've got one for you, if that's okay. There's a question for you. Let's see here. The animal reliefs that we see on the gates, are they original? Are they original, or are they careful casts? Is what the question is.
Yeah. So most of the people that they visited us in Babylon, they don't think Ishtar Gate. We have original Ishtar Gate, and also they think it is this animals. It is not original, but the truth, it is all what we have in this gate. It is original. So all this, I mean, the mishkisho, the symbol of the god Marduk, it is original, and also the pool that he represent the god added, also original. And we did not touch any one of them. Even we did not put any bricks inside this animals. So all of it original until now, and we will try to save it as we can for the new generation. So most of it, it is original.
I just want to add to that, Ammar. Unfortunately, when that picture of where Haider and I were talking, a lot of the excavations that were done were not followed up by any backfilling or preservation or conservation activities. Hence, the lower levels of masonry collapsed and evaporated away. So the replacement with modern construction bricks were to fill those areas that were damaged by exposure, but they also meant we lost the lower animal reliefs that are inside the gate today. Now, we know they go many, many down into the ground, but those that are right near the ground level were gone. So unfortunately for everyone, that has caused permanent damage and the loss of the lower levels of animal reliefs inside the gate, and it's connected to the groundwater and or water management issues. Helen, just a question for you. How much of the gate that we see, or parts of the gate we see in Berlin, are from Babylon original material, and how much would be, you would say, is replacement or added material?
Thank you for this question. It's less than 20% of the gate in Berlin is original material. It's only in the parts of the animals are made or assembled by original brick fragments, and more than 80% is made of modern glazed bricks, which were produced in manufacturers near Berlin in the late 1920s. That's quite surprising for the most visitors, as a gate looks so complete, but it isn't. It's only parts are assembled from original material.
So kind of the funny part is that when you're in Berlin, everybody thinks it's all original, when in fact only 20%. But when you're in Babylon, in Iraq, everybody says it's all in Berlin. I'm like, no, you're standing in it. We've literally had reporters and journalists say to us, what about Ishtar Gate at Babylon? And I'll say, but you're standing in it. And they look around like, is this Ishtar Gate? I'm like, yes, it is. And most of it's original. We've got a ton of questions. I don't know how we're going to answer some of these. So let me go up to one. Ammar.
Yeah.
It's great to see so much support is provided by the U.S. Embassy. Are the Iraqi government agencies contributing now, or do they have plans to support Babylon in the future? Maybe you want to talk about the recent one in particular.
So, well, The SPH has a plan for 5 years, but honestly, they don't have the funding for or the money to do the excavation or conservation inside Babylon site. So most of the temples that we have it inside the Babylon, for example, the temple of Nabushahari, it is very important. Now it is the front of it collapsed. So they have a plan, but they don't have the money to complete or to make the conservation for these sites.
And to add, Ammar, we know that a lot of the money that recently came through to revive the Babylon Festival, which was an event that existed back in the 1980s. A lot of that money went through the Babel governorate, the central municipality, did not go through the Antiquities department. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Helen, I've got another question here from someone. Alfred has a question. He says, can you speak a bit more about the history of Ishtar Gate? Of course, you're going to have to do this quickly. And what role it played at Babylon? What was the purpose of Ishtar Gate? There you go.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. I'm sorry that I didn't address this more in my short introduction. It was one of the city gates, and it is one of the inner city gates. And as you have seen in the video, Jeff was working on the processional street, and the processional street was on both sides of the Ishtar Gate. It started on the in the outer city, and it continues through the city of Babylon to one of the most important temples. So the gate was a city gate, but also was a highly religious and very important place during the New Year festival, and where the processions worked through.
Just to follow up with that, another question someone asked you, how close or fairly close is what is shown in Berlin to what it originally was? I know there's a story about it's actually a lot shorter, but could you quickly say something about that?
That's very difficult to answer, as we don't know how the gate really looked like. The reconstruction in Berlin is organized after this older construction phase, which are still standing in Babylon. And that's why that's the best idea we have of how the latest phase of the gate might look like. But there is a lot of archaeological reconstruction thinking about, which we don't have any proof, since the Ishtar Gate is so unique. We don't have a gate where we can compare it with.
Oh, thank you. There's another question I'll answer. It says here, U.S. military set up a base at Babylon. We know it's called Camp Alpha. Sounds like something out of a cheap science fiction flick. That damaged the archaeological site. What is being done to address that damage? So I'm not sure how much people follow this, but Camp Alpha was installed just after the invasion of Iraq. There was a period of chaos, like a lot of the country. And then a base was set up there, mainly a helicopter base. And then after, I don't know, about 7 or 8 or 9 months, it went to the Polish government or Polish military, who was there for about just over a year, the site. This project partly exists as a follow-up to that event. So the funding that started the Future of Babylon project was a petition by the head of the Iraqi Antiquities, Donnie George, to the US Congress for financial support. When we assembled the Babylon Site Management Plan, that was a committee of 5 Iraqi SPH management figures and myself and a few others, we had a debate and had to deal with that issue. But one of the things that kept coming up over and over when we were discussing about that particular moment and the other moment that consumes everybody is Saddam's interventions at the site, which arguably are the most immense and most difficult, irreversible. aspects of the site, was that in reality, what's been happening at Babylon is a long-term process of abuse and exploitation of the site that dates back to the Ottoman period. When Robert Koldewey, and Helen, you can confirm on this, when he began his excavations, there were people brick mining and still taking bricks from the ziggurat and other parts of the site, putting them on boats, floating them on down the river, because the bricks that Nebuchadnezzar was in charge of are incredible quality. At one point, there was a railway line put through the site. There was a highway, not just a highway, but a divided highway, major freeway going through the site. There were just recently in 2012 or so, attempts to put in new gas and oil pipelines that cut troughs through the site. And today, besides the issues of climate change and the impact of the Euphrates, which is the Chateau Hilla there, we have another problem, encroachments. Iraq is a fast-growing country. There's a big construction market, and people are illegally building in the site. And it's a constant battle for the Iraqi State Board of Antiquities and Heritage. So the problems that, if we talk about Saddam's interventions or Camp Alpha, are part of a history of disrespect for the site. And the management plan tried to deal with that. Ammar, do you have anything you want to add about the SBH's perspective on encroachments by villages and actually the theft of property, archaeological? Would you say something briefly about that? Of what you can say?
Yeah, okay. So as you know, that Babylon archaeology site, around it, there is several villages. So we are facing each day some problem that the people won't take some areas from the archaeology location that, I mean, inside Babylon site, yeah. So we have some way to push them away or from the archaeology site, but then they come back again. And this is what we have now in Babylon.
So you could say that the Iraqi State Board of Antiquities and Heritage has the best intentions, but if they're not backed up by law enforcement, they really can't do much about some of this activity, which is a shame, because Ammar, you did a series of mappings about the evolution of illegal land encroachments in the site. And it's pretty shocking. If you could just briefly say something about that.
Yeah, so as you know also, in Babylon, for example, the farmers, for example, the farmers, each day they cutting, even in Boursilba, we did a documentation there. So when we make a comparison between the maps at, for example, 1950 and now, most of the archaeology sites, they cut half of it to change it to farms.
Mm-hmm. If I can answer one question to speed up before we have to go, Ammar, to follow up a question, you may want to comment after this as well. There's a question that says, do you feel some of the work done during the Ba'ath and Saddam era is worthy of saving based on its own place in history? I can't really answer it. I'm not an Iraqi, but you could maybe mention about Saddam's palace, if you want, about that, and what are the recent ideas and talk about that building?
Yeah, so Saddam Hussein, he started in 1987 to build a palace inside Babylon site. And he chose a village, they called it Quresh, and this name coming from Koresh, the Armenian leader or king that he occupied Babylon. So he removed this village and he built his palace over it, and it is between the North Palace and the South Palace. So it is the third palace for the son of Nebuchadnezzar, as he thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very large intrusion into the site, and it's on the location of the village of Quresh, where a lot of people were removed. And the museum idea has its challenges. right? The
Yeah.
idea of building a
So
museum.
now we have
inside.
an idea to change the palace to be a museum for Babylon, because we don't have, or we have someone small, as you mentioned in the video, we called it Nebuchadnezzar II. But this it is very tiny, and it is we cannot use it because it will they built it at 1950s, and we think this museum will fall down soon. So now we are focused to change this palace, I mean Saddam Hussein, to be a museum for Babylon, because the location and the size of this palace, it is huge, and we can use it for a museum.
Lovely, thank you. I have one last question from somebody. There's a few others I'd love to answer, and I can say to my own co-workers at World Monuments Fund, if anybody can send me their emails, I'm more than willing to answer some of the questions that were here. Helen, some part of the history myths. Where were the hanging gardens of Babylon in relation to Ishtar Gate, and what shape are they in, if some part of them still exists? Last question, last answer, please.
That's a very, very difficult question, and generations of archaeologists, historians, and architects were discussing this question. And point one is we are not sure if they are really in Babylon. Point two is if they were in Babylon, we are not sure where they were. There is a part called, if I thought it might be the Hanging Garden, since he was always looking for it. But this seems to be a sub construction for another building. One of the ideas at the moment is more that they probably were in Assyria, and later where the idea of a garden where there was a change in the narrative, and then it's changed its location and was coming to Babylon. But actually, we still can't really answer this question. Yeah.
All right, another mystery to solve in the future for you. Yeah. I have to say, through this project, I've met a lot of very interesting people that deal with the history of Babylon, particularly at your museum over the years. Really a great resource that we hope to see, I guess, get back with the SBH and do some really great collaborative stuff. That's just a hint from me. You can't maybe say yes or no, but I think it's a great time to see the traditions of Robert Coldaway come back and work with the SBH on a lot of things. I think they feel the same way. All right. Look, unfortunately, we've run out of time. And this concludes today's journey through the history and ongoing preservation work at the iconic Ishtar Gate of Babylon. Before we depart, I want to say one quick thing. If you've got a question that I didn't answer, I would love to hear from you. Send something in the chat, your email address to somebody, and we will gladly answer those questions. I would like to thank all of our speakers, which are two, and me, and Hyder, who's in the video. There is a whole crew of people I had written down here to thank, but my co-workers say I can't go through them all. So it's a really good bunch. I hope you can appreciate some of the work they've been doing. I would also like to express my thanks to the US State Department and the US Embassy in Baghdad, who continue to support the project. Previous donors, the Samuel H. Kress Foundation, the Annenberg Foundation, and the J.M. Kaplan Fund for making WMF's work at Babylon possible. And of course, thanking you all for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's event, I invite you to sign up to receive future Heritage from Home tours right in your inbox using the link in the chat here today. If you'd like to become a WMF member or support our work around the world, please also check the chat for more information. You'll find me crossing paths with you. I've worked for WMF in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Iraq, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia. Could be more in the future. We'll see. Thank you, and see you then next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.